The inevitable has finally come. The Pacers are going to have to deal with COVID-19 and protocols. Have to hope every player is okay, but lots to change coming for the Pacers. Plus, it's the last day of 2021. So on the flip side of something bad, something good. What was the best stuff that happened to the Pacers this year? Lots to get to on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and the West Side Community News, and today is the most bad news, good news kind of day I think I've ever had doing this podcast, because to open, we got to talk about the big news hitting the Pacers. The COVID protocols bug has caught them like every other team in the league. They were one of only a few teams that didn't have any players in it as of 2 days ago. Now they have 4 players in it. They're going to have to change up their roster. Got to talk about who's in it, what the changes are going to be, how the rotation might change. And then it's the last day of the year. So I want to look back on 2021, the best moments for the Pacers, which not a great year to do that activity. Not going to lie, not the most banner year for the Pacers, but still fun to look back at some of the good stuff that happened this year. And joining me to do that, Mr. Rhett Bauer from 8 Points, 9 Seconds. Rhett, how's it going, man?
Boy, you talk about good and bad news today. That is just absolutely where we're going to be. But I'm doing fantastic. Just ready to wrap up this year and hopefully start a better one next year.
Yeah, for the Pacers, I don't think next year can be worse than this year, especially compared to expectations. You know, actually lower expectations might kind of be good for them in a new calendar year, a little clean slate of, they were like the second seed in the East when we crossed from 2020 to 2021. So what a difference a year makes. But we're not starting there because, man, oh man, was today a dramatic day at practice. And I don't mean dramatic in like in a good or fantastical way. I mean dramatic as in scary and all the bad stuff you don't want to happen to a basketball team happening to a basketball team. We learned before the Hornets game that Jeremy Lamb had tested positive for COVID, and he did not play in that game. And you always hope that it's going to hold off, but it never does. So Chris Duarte, Malcolm Brogdon, and Isaiah Jackson have all now entered health and safety protocols. No confirmation on if any of them tested positive or not. The biggest takeaway, as always, is hope those guys are okay. I had an idea that this might be coming in general, because when you show up to practice, you kind of get the sense when something's off. But also, while we're sitting there waiting to go into practice, the Pacers signed Nate Hinton, right? They already signed a guy. And the way the COVID rules work, if you listen to yesterday's podcast, is once 2 guys are in the COVID list, you have to sign a replacement guy. And then 3, you have to sign 2, and 4, you have to sign 3. So the Pacers are going to have to sign 2 more guys on top of Nate Hinton. So first and foremost, hoping for the best for these guys' health. And, hopefully they can be healthy. I mean, athletes, thankfully, have the right immune system and bodies to clear these things pretty well so far, but you never know what's going to happen. You never want them to be the first one. Hope for their health. And second, for the Pacers, they're going to be without more rotation guys. We've seen them without Brogdon recently. We've seen them without Lamb recently, but we've never seen them without Duarte. Jackson's another hit, and now they might have to play all these other guards on top of McCollum and Warren being out. The rotation is going to be really decimated coming up, Rhett.
Yeah, absolutely. I was kind of wondering what Brogdon's timeline was going to be with his Achilles anyways. So adding this on top of it, you just wouldn't want to wish that on anybody. But it kind of seems like it's Keelan Martin's chance to step up, no?
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. I mean, he played 2 against the Hornets, and Karis LeVert talked about that 4 perimeter guy lineup really working against Charlotte, and Keelan was a big part of that.
Yeah, exactly. And so if he can keep that momentum going, it seems like he's been more involved lately, which is obviously great because he's on the roster and we kind of need guards out there, especially those that can hit threes. But yeah, I'm just really hoping that this is the extent of our big breaking news for COVID hits and that we can just kind of move past this at some point. But if it gets any worse, then the Pacers could get ugly very, very fast. Even more ugly, I guess.
Horrible schedule coming up too, and the NBA has changed the protocol clearing rules for vaccinated asymptomatic players. It's only 6 days if they can get negative PCR tests in back-to-back days. So let's check back on this next Wednesday or Thursday to determine what the Pacers' next steps could be and things like that. But they have games in the interim. They play, obviously, today in the middle of the day, they play the Bulls, and then next week they've got the Cavs in Cleveland and New York, and then Brooklyn again on the 5th on a back-to-back. So probably 4 games at least without just these guys. that's assuming that's isolated cases. We've seen with other teams how quickly this just snowballs and snowballs. So this could be something that changes. We saw Mike Weinar come back, their assistant coach, in 6 days. Lloyd Pierce had an inconclusive test. It could be that. We don't really know specifics at this time, but what we do know is Nate Hinton's on the team now. 2 more signings will be coming likely tomorrow. I have no idea what kind of scope or position the team is thinking, given who's out. You talked about Keelan Martin stepping up. Like against the Hornets, the only guy they actually lost who played in that game for this COVID stuff is Duarte, right? Brogdon already wasn't playing. Jackson was out of the rotation. Lamb didn't play in that game. So they only really have to replace one guy, and maybe Keelan's the starter, but I don't know who can be their second unit guard. Dwayne Washington? They just signed Nate Hinton. I mean, that's where the snowball really heats up for this team is what kind of position do they sign, and who can even step up and fill a role right now?
And the fact that you are relying on these guys to just come up off the street and then start playing like decent minutes is just scary because you just have no idea what somebody's going to be, like how ready somebody saw. I saw somebody post some Jeff Teague to Indy, just like a prayer. And I was like, that's where we're at closing. No, it's not at all. Like that's how we're closing out 2021 is the return of the Jeff Teague meme. Like that's where we're at. So I really like the idea of seeing what Hinton and Sykes can do, even though they are pretty low ceiling, but that's kind of where O'Shea Brissett came from, is being good in the G League and then turning that into something. So I much prefer seeing what those guys can do to bringing back a Jeff Teague. But at the same time, for a team that kind of wants to win some games, like you may not have a choice but to bring in a guy like Teague if it gets any worse.
Nate Hinton is guard-ish, and Rick Carlisle, let me tell you, loves Nate Hinton. Like I asked him about Nate Hinton in preseason just to get a quote. I want to hear how he feels about him. And he went for like 2 minutes on like, I love this dude's energy and aggression. He's been in my system for 2 years, blah, blah. Rick Carlisle loves Nate Hinton. I don't know that he'll just sign on the team and jump Dwayne in the rotation, but it would not surprise me if we saw Nate Hinton playing today against the Bulls.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, throw whoever out there that you can and see what happens. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how much worse it can get as far as rotation minutes go, but I would be surprised too if he jumped Dwayne in the rotation just because they seem to be more invested in him. But if Carlisle likes Hinton that much, then shoot, he may be out there starting. Like, just get crazy with it to close 2021.
I would guess it's Dwayne too, but like Isaiah's a big, and they have Goga, they have Terry Taylor. They're not at all screwed at that position, but maybe they bring in one other forward. And to add a layer of, this is just speculation from me, but the Mad Ants, their season is canceled right now. But as a result of that, they're able to practice in Indy. I saw a few at practice today. Mad Ant staffers there. Edmund Sumner was there. TJ McConnell was acting as an assistant coach there. Like all the adjacent Pacers associated stuff, like Mad Ants players, former players and stuff, they're all around the team right now because like that's what they can do. They can go to the facility and practice while whatever they're doing is canceled. So Mad Ant call-ups seem somewhat likely. Hinton was one of them. Now, unfortunately, this is one bad part of having your COVID spike later than other teams is a lot of the good Mad Ants have already been called up to other teams. Gabe York went to the Magic. DeJon Jarreau went to the Rockets. We've already seen those guys go away. So like Benny Boatwright, he played Summer League for the Pacers. He's a big. Maybe he could get called up. Steph Hicks was on the Pacers on a 10-day 2 seasons ago. Maybe he could. The Mad Ants acquired Walt Lemon, who's played in the NBA a few times for the Bulls. Celtics was on the Pacers for preseason a few years ago. Today, they also acquired Russ Smith today, if you remember him from Louisville. I don't know if he ever reached the NBA. But these are just some names to think about as the Pacers consider what they need to add. But, you just with this hardship stuff, it could literally be anybody. Like, it could literally be any player. A lot of the availability, the best ability here is availability. Like, if you're in town, you have a huge advantage because they need you like that day. So that's why I'm leaning heavily on the Mad Ant speculation, but it could be anyone who just happens to be local. I have no idea. Do you have any guesses? I don't want to speculate too much, but do you have any guesses?
No, I'm not going to take any guesses because we could, somebody said Luis Scola out there and that's going to be my guess. Let's just bring him back. We saw him for the Olympics and I want to see it again.
That would be fantastic. That would just be spectacular. Like is JJ Redick? Remember they almost signed him a few years ago. Like they need a shooter. Maybe he's not going to come to the Pacers, but that would be the
plus he'd bring his podcast gear with him, and then shoot, that would just
there we go.
Get ugly. Yeah.
So I'm guessing it'll be 2 more Mad Ants or 1 Mad Ant and 1 vet or something that the Pacers end up signing for their other 2 guys to fill in after Hinton. I'm guessing we'll find that out tomorrow. I don't know how the timing works, but I'm guessing since it's a 10-day hardship deal, you'd like to do it on a game day so you can have maximize the number of days just in case your guys are out. as long as possible. But the forefront with these things is, I think you're right. Keelan's going to have to step up, and maybe they go with someone else. They slide Justin Holiday down to the 2, and like Brissett starts at the 3 or something. But all the bench wings are going to have a bigger role because one of them's playing 2 guard now. And then either Dwayne Washington or Nate Hinton's probably going to step up on the rotation. And that's the basketball takeaway. And the human takeaway is hope everybody's okay and that they can keep these cases as isolated as possible going forward. And as Justin Holiday said, hope they don't get too bored at home.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting to hear Justin talk about it, but then also know that he tested positive earlier this year, and that was it for the Pacers. Like, that was extremely, extremely isolated. So hoping that can continue with this handful of cases, and we don't need to keep talking about any more hardship exceptions, because I think the Atlanta Hawks have like 26 guys on their roster right now, and I don't want to get anywhere near that number for human reasons and for basketball discussion reasons.
Yeah, the Mavs had enough cases that they signed Brandon Knight as a replacement player. And then Brandon Knight went into health and safety protocol. So to replace him, they signed Isaiah Thomas as a health and safety player. And then he went into health and safety protocol. So now the Mavs are about to have a replacement player for their replacement player for a replacement player. It's chaos. You never wanted to get to that point for, like you said, human and basketball reasons. Hope all these guys are okay. We'll see what happens next for the Pacers. But we're just going to hard pivot. I don't know how to segue from that to what I initially messaged Rhett about talking about today, which is our best of 2021 for the Pacers moments. Hey guys, let's take one short little break to talk about the good folks over at PrizePicks, because you've been hearing me tell you about PrizePicks. Have you signed up yet? It's daily fantasy made easy. If you have not checked it out, you're missing out. You're going to love this app for NBA and mixed sport pick'ems. The Christmas Day games were off the charts there, and games going forward are going to be super fun. They have the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offer all the superstar players as well as bench players. Any prop you can think of: points, assists, rebounds, threes made, over, under, you name it, they got it. And all users that deposit and use our promo code will receive a 100% instant match deposit up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code NBA, all one word, when you sign up. Pick 2 to 5 players, pick those over-unders, and you can up to 10 times on your first entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. Go check them out today, prizepicks.com, and use the promo code NBA. Or go to your app store, download the app, and sign up. Use that code. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. This is a very Pacers-colored glasses-y show because this year was not a good year for the Pacers. They're currently 14-21. What did they go last year in 2021 alone? I mean, they finished 34-38. What were they, 3-1 when the year turned? So
yeah,
31-37. Yuck.
Right around there.
Yeah, horrible year for the Pacers given their expectations, given what they wanted. A lot of injuries, coaching changes, in-game spats between players and coaches, in general negative years. And that's why I want to not look at that stuff and say, what was the coolest stuff that happened, the stuff that made fans love being fans again this year? We both came up with 3 things. I'm going to let Rhett do 2 in this segment and me 1, and then we'll switch and I'll do 2 next segment. Rhett, give me one of your 3 favorite things from the Pacers for the 2021 year.
First and foremost is very easy. At the time, especially, would have said this is the biggest transaction the Pacers made. And it was, because it's the hiring of Rick Carlisle. Not only because of what we came from with Bjorkgren, but also bringing Carlisle back, the sentimentality of that, and the hope that he brought to a season that hasn't really worked out in that manner. But even still, one of the best things that happened to the Pacers in 2021, I think.
Not on my list. That's all I want.
Hey, yes.
As little overlap as possible is what I'm hoping for. That was definitely cool, especially for like the older fans who he was like, I mean, if the brawl doesn't happen, there's a chance he's like the most storied coach in franchise history. That was maybe the best team they've had. And then he's lasted this whole time, championship pedigree, wanted to come here. They got the best available coach this summer. Like, that's a pretty big deal for a market like this. And I know it's not a player, and I know all fans want is the best players, but getting the best coach is still not nothing, especially after the Bjorkgren year. And, you know, they've been a little reflexive with coaching hires of, okay, from old school to new school to older school. But Carlisle is a damn good coach, despite what the record says this year to me. And I think it was a home run hire. I definitely think it was a highlight of the year. And there's a reason fans and the front office and basically the whole org were really psyched to have him around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we can't even make it results biased right now and say that it wasn't as good of a hire as we thought it was, because there's so much going on. And Rick Carlisle is such a good coach. You can see the imprint he has on some of these games, even though you can also see them in bad ways occasionally. But still, massive transaction. Getting the best coach on the market, like you said, is is just, it's got to be up there for top 3. That's all.
So my first one was actually their second game of 2021. Is my third favorite moment of this year. Do you remember this game? Do you remember what I'm going to say?
Yeah, because it was my next point.
Oh, I sniped one off your list. Yes, the Miracle in New Orleans, not named that. I am calling it that. That was probably my favorite game of the year, just from a wow perspective. For those who do not remember this game, Pacers in New Orleans. Vic was still on the team. They were sucking in the fourth quarter, down 10 with about 3 minutes to go, down 8 crossing the minute barrier, down 6 with 27 seconds to go. Vic hits a 3 with 20 seconds left. They steal the inbounds. Turner hits a 3. They go to overtime and somehow pull it out. It was an absolute blast. Brogdon with the game winner with 3 seconds left. Every turn of the game in the fourth and overtime was just like, how do they keep hitting these shots that are huge when it matters? The New Orleans completely threw the game. It was freaking awesome at the time, and they were looking awesome as a team at that time too. So New Orleans was good last year. Zion played. That was a huge win. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, they were, I think you said it, they were second. Yeah, they were second in the East at that point. And so it was going great. Vic was playing well. Everybody contributed and did great things and hit clutch. And yeah, absolutely one of the best games of the last 2 seasons, let alone the last year.
Vic had 25 that night. People forget how helpful he was for the Pacers that year. That was his season high at the time. In fact, his season high in a Pacers uniform in general that year. And I should eventually do a podcast, maybe on the year anniversary of the trade, of what did they really lose when they dealt him? He was up and down that year for sure. He was definitely up and down in the bubble year and stuff. But what did they lose in just an off-court guy and a glue connector who could be a leader? And I know Brogdon has stepped up in that way this year in ways that fans can't ever really appreciate, especially when so much is closed off thanks to COVID and Zoom. But they lost a lot trading Vic, both in terms of basketball, because they literally didn't have LeVert for 2 months after that, and in terms of a locker room guy who just teammates love being around. So that was his best moment of that season too. That game was just an absolute blast. And even when I was going through all the games from last year for the Pacers, that one stood out to me. Before I even figured out what the date of it was, I was just praying it actually was in 2021, and thank goodness it was, so it could be on my list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I gonna have to go twice in a row since I sniped one from you now?
No. I got another one. I had a backup as well. Good. So my second one is the second game of this season, where the played at Washington. Miles had 40 points, and we had lost our first 2 games by a total of 2 points. We had so much hope then, Tony. Miles played incredible. We had lost 2 games, yes, but it was only by 2 points. They were both on the road, both against good teams. And then, and Miles had an incredible game, and then it just went downhill from there. So it's had to be super early in the year, but that was one of my top 3 for 2021, I think.
Yeah, Miles fans loved that game. That game was a blast, despite Davis Bertans deciding that would be the only game of the season he'd remember how to be an effective NBA player, and hit a miracle fadeaway with a few seconds left in that game. Yeah, that was so funny because I had to do a podcast the weekend after the opening games, and they lost by 1 to the Hornets, and they outplayed the Hornets for 45 minutes of a 48-minute game and lost. And then they did the same thing to the Wizards and lost by 1, and Miles had 40 points, and all these players look good, and Duarte looked awesome. And I'm like, all right, Rick Carlisle's got it. This team's going to be sweet. They beat the Heat a couple nights later, and yikes, that did not turn out to be the case for this team. But that was certainly a fun game, especially for Miles fans, for obvious reasons. He scored 40 points, but even for Pacers fans in general who have been waiting for the too big thing to manifest, even if it's not your favorite big, I don't care. I'm not here to talk about what big you like or don't like. They both this whole season have been working, but in that game in particular, they combined for 68, 19, and 7. That was just oh my God, they might have something here. Maybe that should have been a sign to us that Rick had better plans for them than any coach before. And obviously any game that ends 135 to 134 is going to be fun to watch, but to see it happen that way, even though they lost, I think a lot of Pacers fans had a lot of fun with that one.
That's exactly right. It's not even about Miles's game specifically. It's about how effective they were together and the fact that they both could go off at the same time against a team who, coming into the season, had playoff or play-in aspirations. So they were pretty good. And then obviously going to overtime is always good. Scoring 130 something points, like you said, is going to be exciting to watch. And then it didn't go downhill from there because you beat Miami, like you said. But after that, it was not super great.
If they had won that game, I think that would have made my list. I think that's how close the game margins were for this one. That was not on my list as well, by the way. That didn't even make my honorable mentions. I'm actually surprised that did make your list.
Man, all right.
Well, I was going to. Oh, wait. It's a segment break. I don't have to. Well, one of the games we just mentioned is on my list. So that's a very easy transition. Let's talk about a few great groups of people first. One more break to talk about the great folks over at Built Bar who are making the best tasting protein bars ever. They make protein bars that taste like candy bars, maybe even better than candy bars, to be honest. They're so good. They have so many great flavors. I love the peanut butter brownie. I heard the eggnog one they just had for the holidays is good if you're still feeling the holiday spirit. And they taste so good, it'll help you stick to your New Year's resolution. You'll want to eat it, unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky, waxy, or just taste like a chemical spill or something nasty. They're disgusting. And not only are Built Bars delicious, they're super healthy, right? 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, all in one bar. They're delicious. They're healthy. You've got to try them out. Go to built.com and use our promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order of 100% covered in chocolate, delicious Built Bars. Go check them out. That promo code again is LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. So yes, one of those is on my list from a few nights later. And it wasn't even that awesome of a game. I'm going to be honest with you. 102-91 was the final. It sounds like the Pacers kicked butt. The game went to overtime. They beat the Heat. This game makes my list because, like something I said about the Wizards game in the opening weekend for the Pacers, they were playing well and people thought they might be okay this year. This was the Duarte, like, oh, wow, this kid might be awesome moment. They were down 2. They'd scored like 4 points in 6 minutes or something at this point in the fourth quarter. The Heat had completely shut down the Pacers the second half of this game. And then Duarte bombs a pull-up 3 right in the Heat's face from like 30 feet from the right wing and just drilled it. Gave the Pacers the lead, completely reignited the building, hit a few other big shots in that game, hit 3 free throws in overtime, and then the game's sealing free throws. MVP chance from the section next to me. Obviously facetious. No one thinks Chris Duarte should be MVP, but for an 0-2 franchise who had a terrible season last year, losing their fans a little bit, didn't get the high lottery pick, to have their first round pick do that in his first home game against a good team and get the Pacers their first win of the year, that was awesome. That was electric. That was my favorite moment in stadium of the season for me. It was one of those shirt nights too, which is dumb to people who don't get to be there, but like everything's one color, so it just looks cool when anything happens. So to have it be like a poetically cool game and to see Chris Duarte have his moment as a rookie and really put his stamp on the league, that one was really cool. That was a big moment this year, I think.
Is it a good sign that we have so many of our moments in the first 3 games of the season? Probably not. No, it's not. No, but I completely agree. Duarte coming out of the gate like that, first game in Cambridge, and yeah, I'm right there.
Yeah, renamed stadium, renovations. Yeah. Wow.
I had to catch myself. I wasn't sure if it was back to Banker's Life then, or if it was mid-season change, whatever. It's fine. But no, Duarte doing all of that. And another game that went to overtime, except the score was 33 points different, which is pretty indicative of the Miami Heat as a team, especially with how good they were supposed to be coming into the year, getting Kyle Lowry and all of that. That's a good team. So not only do you lose 2 games by 2 points, then you come out and do that to the Heat. Man, the season started off pretty good for being 1-2.
Yeah, the whole season's just been weird, right? Because even now, looking back at that game, they've played the Heat 3 times. They played the Heat once when they had Jimmy and Bam, and they won by double digits. And then they played the Heat twice without Jimmy and Bam and got their butts kicked in both of those games. Makes no sense. This team makes no sense. Every stat about this team makes no sense. The record makes no sense. The players make no sense. Nothing makes any sense. I'm kind of tired of making sense about it, but they've got a month till the trade deadline. Stuff will change. That one had to be on my list. That was the moment of just like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like, I love games like that where something happens that I'll probably never forget, and I probably will never forget that moment for a kid that I'll probably cover for a half decade or longer. It was awesome. All right, give me your last one. I have a lot of honorable mentions too, so we'll probably keep going. Give me your last one on your list for your favorite 2021 Pacer moments.
So my last one actually ties into that game, and it's not just a moment; it's moments. It's Chris Duarte at the buzzer. He just started the year off just hitting so many shots at the buzzer, and for a team that wasn't very exciting, it was nice to have those small exciting moments in the middle, especially when it seemed like Duarte was just going to be clutch, because it seemed like we had Vic, who was clutch, and then we have Duarte, who seems like he was going to be clutch. And while the Pacers have gone to Duarte in some late game moments and he hasn't hit the shots, and obviously the team isn't winning a bunch of games, that was just nice to see the confidence that Duarte has in the shot making and the poise to pull off moments like that. And everybody loves a buzzer beater. So that's my last one.
So what have we gotten so far? 3 in summer league, 2 in summer league.
I think it was 2.
I typed down Chris Duarte in summer league on my honorable mentions list too, because he had the 2-handed block and stuff where everyone's like, wait, what is this guy doing? He had one against the Wizards in their second game. And a lot of these were, none of these except for I think 2 were actually like crucial shots. The Heat one and the Lakers one, which that's an honorable mention on my list as well. The Knicks, he hit one. The Wizards, I just said he hit one. And then the Lakers, I'm missing one. There's 5. And whatever, a lot of like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like they give this guy the ball at the end of possessions. We haven't seen it as much recently as he's kind of gone to the bench and other guys have gotten shots, which to your head for the YouTube watcher shaking no is of course upsetting. You'd like to see him get more chances at that, and I get why, but yeah, it's been awesome to see him rise to those moments, especially like in summer league. It's cool and like exciting. You want to see the rookie do well if you're a fan of the team, but when it matters and the games are important, to see him with no fear when the buzzer is sounding is always sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just the clutch factor of having a guy out there who's not scared to close games, take those big shots, and that's something that the team kind of needs, especially with some of the ball sharing that goes around, as a guy who's not afraid to kind of put the team on his back a little bit and step up and make a big shot. But obviously, like you said, there weren't that many that mattered. It's just nice to see the ball go in as the buzzer goes off.
So I had the Lakers one as an honorable mention. Had they won that game, 100% makes the list. Or had they called the foul on the shot he hit,
right?
It also might make the list. That was awesome. I mean, he's been a lot of the bright spots for this season alone, and it's been very fun to watch him develop into a player that a franchise pillar. They haven't really had a franchise pillar in their recent core seasons. I guess you could say maybe Sabonis and Brogdon could be, I don't know, they're 14 and 21, maybe not. So yeah, him being that has been awesome. So you didn't steal one of my honorable mentions or my last one, which is great because it's more stuff we can talk about. One is a human moment. One is a game moment. What do you prefer for this one first?
Give me the human moment.
A human moment, honorable mention. I actually thought this would for sure be on your list, which is why I moved it to honorable mention. Karis LeVert returns from cancer. That is as a human moment as you can get. That whole story, I think, belongs in the best of Pacers 2021. To find this out, still go through with the trade, help this guy through maybe the scariest thing that's happened in his life, help him recover, identify this because of a trade. I mean, how lucky for him that even happened. He gets right, he's able to play, and then he comes back for this first game and 13 points, starts, plays 27 minutes, and they win. They beat the Suns, who go to make the finals. That moment was just awesome. Every player on the team after the game and post-game media was like, yeah, I wanted to bust my ass tonight because this dude came back from cancer and is playing on my team. Like they wanted to win for this guy. They showed it. They beat a good team in Phoenix, and the whole LeVert trade story to when he returned to the court, I think, was one of my favorite moments of the year. Of like, wow, this is awesome. This is one of those why people love sports so much kind of things.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole point about it coming from a trade, like if the Pacers don't try to get involved in the James Harden deal, Karis LeVert, the Houston Rockets may not have the same health process that the Pacers do. And so he may not even have found that out. And it's just crazy to think of like the domino effect of what could have come from that. But it didn't. They found out, and he came back, I think, quicker than a lot of us expected, even though it took him a little bit longer to like actually get up to game shape and start looking like himself. But man, just getting cancer and coming back in the same year, in the same season is just absolutely incredible. I did have it marked down as one. I thought it might be one of yours, so I'm glad that you had it as an honorable mention.
It's weird because in covering sports, a lot of the questions I ask about injuries are like, how's your sore ankle? Or like, hey, when's this guy coming back from a muscle injury? Like, stuff I know how to ask about and understand how to think about it and contextualize in the sports universe. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, cancer. That takes so many people's lives a year. It's absolutely horrible. We put so much money into research. It's like I barely know how to ask or write about this. Like I had to be introspective and think about how to handle it. And I'm just a person on the outside of the team. I can't imagine how the people within the team, how Karras himself obviously felt going through that. So see him fully recover and quickly, like you said, at the forefront of the timeline they gave him and do well when he came back and they win and everybody played well. That definitely made my list. So and by made my list, I mean, I put honorable mention before it because I thought you would say it. So kind of made my list. Did you have any more honorable mentions? If not, I will close this out here.
Nope. Go ahead.
I can't believe you didn't have this either or even have it as an honorable mention. A stat line we might never see again. TJ McConnell, 9 steals in the first half against the Cavs, 10 steal double-double, triple-double, 16 points, 13 assists, 10 steals off the bench. He didn't miss a shot. So let's talk about this stat line again. Triple-double with steals, not rebounds, with steals, did not miss a shot. That is crazy. That I will never see that again in my entire life. How is that not on your list?
Well, I didn't want to steal from Bally Sports, who posted their top 5 moments in 2021, and that was one of them. And so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna repeat it. But no, that is absolutely incredible, and I'm glad you brought it up once again. We just miss TJ McConnell so much because that's just possible. Like that's possible for him to get 10 steals. And the craziest part about it is he was stuck at 9 steals. I think he didn't get the 10th one till the 4th quarter or something like that, where this entire time we're just sitting there like triple double. And then it just takes forever. But no, that's, I can't believe the not missing a shot too is another part of it, which is just absurd. Like, man. 2021
happened. I think like twice a decade or something. I'm gonna look it up while I'm talking. So like, okay, yeah, it's maybe a once in a lifetime thing to actually like watch the whole game live and stuff. But steal, triple double, and not missing is nuts. Like that's nuts. I couldn't believe it happened. And what was it? 8 steals in the first quarter, right? And then 9 at halftime.
Yeah,
and then didn't get to last for a long time.
Yep.
And they only won by 3. Like they kind of sucked that night too. They needed every inch of that game he gave them. So
and that was against the Cavs before they were good.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That actually is a good transition to say it was not a great year for the Pacers. And I don't think anyone is going to sugarcoat it and say they're going to turn the corner or next year's going to be better or anything. Like, look, they had a lot of reasons to say last year was bad. They hired their own coach. Everyone got hurt. COVID has completely changed so many teams, has changed the salary cap. It has literally changed everything for a lot of teams and every team, honestly. And there's a reason a lot of teams have pivoted directions in the last 2 years in terms of their fortunes, and the Pacers are no different. But they had a crappy year, and they're going to have to figure out how to make it a thing of the past and not the trend going forward. And they've already switched coaches. They're already reportedly looking to changing directions. We'll see what that actually manifests into probably in the next in the next 40 days. And this could be a very different podcast 1 year from now where I say, what are the best moments from 2022? And it actually could be less game moments. We'll actually see. But they're in 13th in the East for a reason. So here's to a better year for the Pacers next year because they did not have a ton of highlight moments in 2021.
No, absolutely not. And I wonder if you did this for 2020 as well, if you went back to listen to that, like what 2020 would have brought, because it feels like this team has just changed so much for the last year to year that who the heck knows where we're going to be in 2022.
Okay. Vic comes back from injury, and I mean that's like number one by a mile.
That's it. Right? Yes,
it's the game tying 3 for sure. Warren's 50 whatever in the bubble for sure.
Yep.
They probably had a buzzer beater to that year. Was the Sabonis buzzer beater against the Celtics? Was that technically in 2020 at the beginning of the year?
I think it was 2. Yeah, no, it was because that was Bjorkgren.
Yeah. That one would be there. And they tried that play a bunch. That one would be there for sure. So yeah, I think there'd be some fun ones for that year for sure because 2020 was like they made the playoffs. They had a good bubble run. Like that year would be a lot better.
We got to watch TJ Warren play basketball. Like
TJ actually played. Exactly. McDunk contest was still a thing. Oh, I miss Doug McDermott dunking so I can watch silly videos of it on the internet. So yeah, maybe next year's will be better. We'll see. I mean, a lot will be decided about the future of this team in the coming month. But that should not be your takeaway from the show. The COVID stuff is going to be the story for the Pacers going forward. I mean, their game tomorrow obviously is the story. They play a game, but other guys you haven't heard of are going to be playing, and they might have to sign other guys who are going to be playing, and then they might have to sign even more guys after that. That's the stuff to monitor for the Pacers, despite our fun-loving 8 moments from 2021 that were fun. Keep monitoring this, of course. I'll cover it in the best detail I can. And also on next Monday's show, going to keep milking the New Year's stuff. Going to make some resolutions for this team in 2022 because, boy, did they need it. Rhett, where can people follow you and all your stuff?
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Rhett_Bauer, RHETT_BAUER. I'm on there far too much, and I have a lot of thoughts that may or may not be agreeable to those around me, which is perfectly fine. We're just out here to have fun.
If you have only agreeable thoughts, Twitter would be horrible for everyone, I think. So
exactly.
I appreciate it. Rhett, thank you for the time. This show obviously is on Twitter at Locked On Pacers and me at TEastNBA to keep up with the latest going on with the Pacers. I was at practice yesterday, so you can see my flowing feed from what was going on as we learned while we were there that 3 players were not there. I felt like a psycho counting players when I got in there because I knew of the COVID stuff. And I got to 13 and I was like, oh boy, something's wrong here. So that's the situation to monitor with the Pacers going forward. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Hope you can celebrate some New Year's stuff tonight. And if you're listening after that, hope you had a great New Year's celebration. Be back Monday for more Pacers content. Until then, have a good one.